Hello, my name is Lisa Langell. Welcome to Photography on the Wildside. Today we're going to be talking about photography workshops. All right, welcome back to Photography on the Wildside. My name is Lisa Langell, and we have our guest here today, Cusi Taylor. And we are sponsored by Parkwood Studios and Photographers Adventure Club. Today we're going to be talking about photography workshops and tours. We have some questions that have come in from the audience since my last session. And Cusi, what's our question for today?
So the big question that we want to address today comes from a user, from Laura M. And she says, Lisa, I'm considering registering for a travel-based photography excursion. And what should I consider when making my choice among numerous different offerings and leaders?
You know, Cusi, this is such a great question, and it's something that I think more and more photographers should be asking of the different tours and workshops that are out there. Seems like there are so many different options now, and I've had a lot of people ask this question of me as well. So it's a good topic for tonight, and thanks, Laura, for sending in that question. I've prepared a few things to think about tonight, and there'll also be a downloadable document for you to have some tips as well to take with you later on if you're watching this video to help you think about what you're actually signing up for. So a few of the things that I think are most important when we're looking at this would be to consider, first of all, what the type of event is. A lot of times I've known photographers who confuse a workshop from a tour, from a presentation, from a lecture. What are all those things? And if you're not thinking critically, it can, disappoint you potentially.
Sure.
So, a few things just to clarify for the group. A photography workshop really typically is something that's on location and focused on instruction, whether it's a location locally or maybe you're traveling to Africa to do a safari. But the workshop really is focused on photography instruction.
It implies a one-on-one or one instructor kind of giving the participants an option to try and participate like more hands-on than just lecture style.
Yes, yes. Exactly. And that's something that not a lot of people realize, because there's also seminars and lectures, which typically have more of an entertainment value. They may have some information, but it's usually more something like this in the evening or on a weekend.
It's where you're going to be taking notes, more listening than actively participating and trying to demonstrate or recreate what the instructor is doing.
Exactly, exactly. And it's a really important point, because you sign up for a seminar and you might be expecting hands-on instruction. You're not probably going to get that in most cases. Yeah. And then classes. Classes are usually shorter in nature, or a few hours at a time. Maybe it's a series. But again, you're probably getting more hands-on instruction with that, or small group instruction, but it's not something that's multiple days, but you are going to get instruction. And the last thing that I think people get confused about the most is a photography workshop versus a tour. So if I want to go to Alaska or Hong Kong or Africa or wherever, tour versus workshop. Big difference.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
So a workshop, again, is going to be a little bit more instructional, and the facilitator is going to be prepared to inform and increase your skills and help put you in the right position for a particular shot, do a lot of the pre-planning for you, and make sure that they're helping to make sure that you capture those beautiful shots and learn along the way.
Yeah.
A tour is the onus is a little bit more on the participating photographer to kind of know what they want to go for and take a bit more responsibility for their creative control, that kind of stuff. Not to say that you wouldn't get some instruction or some input or some advice, availability of advice on a tour. But a tour is going to be more of a, let's take you to all these places, these picturesque places, etc. But the focus is a little bit more on the anticipation that you've got some experience, you understand your camera gear. It's not the first time that you've looked at the back of your camera, and that your objectives are a little bit different for what you want to get out of that experience, or that 3-4 days that you're going to spend out there with the group.
Yeah, such an important distinction when you're spending thousands of dollars to go out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, make sure you know whether you want a workshop or a tour. Do you want hands-on instruction, or do you want someone to just take you to great places and you're on your own?
Indeed.
Yeah,
indeed.
big difference.
Right.
Some critical questions that I have put together, because I know so many people don't know what questions to ask. It might be their first one. They don't know what to think. They don't know what they know from what they don't know.
Sure.
And a few things here, one of them being just the participant to instructor ratio. If you are taking a workshop or a class, how many people are going? Is it 20? Is it 5, 10? What is it? Because that can really increase or decrease your learning opportunity.
Yeah, if you're beginning to intermediate with your photography knowledge, try to tend toward a smaller group, and you'll increase your likelihood of that one-on-one, more customized input from the instructor.
Absolutely. And I think you'll feel less intimidated than if you're with 20 people that all know what they're doing. You're afraid to ask the questions that you should ask. And I always encourage you to just ask the questions. You're there. You've paid good money to do this. Make sure that your questions get answered. And I would say, are there facilitators as well? So you might go with, an instructor you really like, but are there facilitators that can help as well? And again, just make sure that you clarify whether it's a workshop or a tour or both. Sometimes they offer a little bit of a mixed environment. And then with the tours, a few things that I think are helpful. I've put these together. There'll be more things in the downloadable list that you can have. And add to this as well, Susie, but again, is it a tour that's photographer oriented? I've seen people go on tours to, Germany or what have you, and they say, darn, I really wanted to photograph this, but the tour guide said, okay, we're here for 20 minutes and then we're there and we're doing this and that. Is it something that is oriented around photographers?
Right.
Which
is
means
it a sightseeing kind of a touristy tour is different than a photography tour? Photography tour is going to take into account the likelihood that you would be able to be somewhere to position your camera, maybe have it on a tripod, maybe be there at the right time of day, whereas a sightseeing tour may just be getting your body there and through the crowd and, yep, there's the Mona Lisa, moving, walking, right? That's what they say, walking.
Exactly. You're like, no.
And you're like, wait.
Can I photograph that? Exactly. Yeah, a big important distinction when you're doing this. And, and again, does it include, like you said, the right times of day? Are you there during the magic hour? I know a lot of people that go on cruises. They end up in all these wonderful cities. Well, you got to get on the boat just about the time the light gets good. So, think about those things. Ask your tour provider what you're going to be doing with that and whether or not you'll get guidance and how knowledgeable are those guides.
Sure.
Sometimes they're very knowledgeable about the city and the people or the wildlife, but they don't know much about your camera. They know point in that general direction. It's beyond that, it's up to you.
They may not help you with your ISO setting.
Exactly. And then again, kind of going along with that, the lodging, the meals and things like that. I know of people who have, health conditions where they need a certain type of diet. They're diabetic. They need rest at certain times of the day. Is this tour one that, we get up at 4 a.m. and we're done at 2 a.m.? Right. Or is it more leisurely for your particular needs?
And we have some of the things that we do in PAC that are workshops are in a little bit of conditions that aren't necessarily for people that have a lot of serious health concerns or anything like that, because you've got to be able to hike. You've got to be able to carry your camera gear for a while. You need to stay hydrated. And in some cases, some of the workshops we go on, there isn't a hotel. So you need to be ready to tent camp. That type of thing, and that's just the type of workshop it is. Now, of course, all of that is described and everything in the workshop information and is very upfront, but those are the types of things to look for to distinguish between whether that a certain workshop is a good fit for you personally, regardless of whether it's the right fit for your level of proficiency or experience. It may not fit you, you may not be able to hike at that level, at that elevation, for instance.
Exactly. Like I teach a workshop in Alaska every year. I've had people from 25 to 70 years of age. It's not a physically demanding workshop, but I'll be doing one next year in the Yukon where we're going to be mushing sled dogs. Completely different thing. You really need to understand what your limitations are in order to do it.
Absolutely.
Some other things, just expertise among the participants. You can learn a lot from the fellow participants that are there. So it's kind of nice to know, hey, am I going to be in a group where, there's a few other beginners, but there's also some more advanced people, because the instructor can provide knowledge, but we all learn from each other.
Well, and we learn from even the new person. So even if you're very experienced, the brand new person has some insight or viewpoint that's valuable also.
Yeah.
And I think if we stay open to that, there's value in getting to know your fellow participants no matter what their experience level.
Mhm. I completely agree with you. And I think it can keep that humility among all of us.
Yeah.
Because you may be a newer photographer, but you could be a heart surgeon in your, daily job.
Right.
And I know sometimes people get very worried about, I'm going to go on this workshop and am I going to be the one that's kind of the least knowledgeable of the group? And I really work to try to dispel that feeling
It's
among
not about
people.
that.
It's not about
None
that.
of us were born knowing how to shoot a camera.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. The photography fairy didn't come to keep us
Right.
with this knowledge. Exactly. So, and if you're taking a workshop, I think it's going to be really important, and jump in here, but really important to ask that organizer what types of skill sets they're catering to, what type of equipment they may or may not cater to, what types of equipment you might need.
Yep.
And is your skill level going to be a good fit for that? I get that question, or I'll have a couple, let's say, that'll want to come. My husband's really not a photographer and I am. Will he have fun? And I'll say, well, we may stand in a certain place for a couple of hours and photograph eagles.
Yeah.
Is he good
How
with
is
that?
he gonna?
Yeah.
Also, you touched upon the equipment thing. For your Alaska workshop, it would be important that they come with lenses long enough for the vantage points that you're going to be at a lot of the time, and to carefully read the recommendations, because you don't want to show up with nothing but a wide angle lens, right? A 35 millimeter prime, and you're trying to shoot
a bear.
A bear that's way over across
Exactly.
the field, and they're like, here's the bear, it's this dot.
Exactly. And a good instructor will be able to work with people to capture an opportunity with the equipment that they have, recognizing that every piece of equipment has its strengths and its limitations. So you're not probably going to get that frame-filling image of a bear. And if you have a 35 millimeter prime, if that's what you have to have, is that frame-filling image of a bear, assuming that nature cooperates, then you better prepare to bring the right equipment. If you're more open-minded and you're like, hey, this is all I have, be prepared that you won't be able to get some shots, but you'll be able to get others that someone else might not.
And a good facilitator is going to help you, like you said, maximize what you've got, and you'll come away with gorgeous landscapes and things like that, and just another perspective.
Exactly. Just know what you're going in with, or consider renting equipment if you can't.
Absolutely.
But do it ahead of time, or rent it a while ahead of time, and then right before your workshop, so that you know how to handle it, because it can be a little bit overwhelming if you just got it.
Sure.
So there's some other tips that I'll put on that list, but these are just a few questions and kind of some tips and things that might be helpful. One of the things that I think is an important thing to ask is how much, if you're in a workshop, is that instructor going to prioritize your learning over their shooting? Because I hear a lot of people that have said to me, I went on this workshop and all it was me paying for the instructor to shoot all the time. And there are some instructors that I know that never shoot, some that shoot a little bit and shoot respecting that the group, if they're all comfortable and everybody's happy, then they'll go and shoot. And some that unfortunately shoot at the expense of others learning.
They'll shoot, and this is what I've heard, is some of them will just go out and shoot and kind of leave it up to participants to gather around and peer over their shoulder and ask questions. And they'll answer questions, but they don't interrupt their own focus in order to pay attention to the participants. And and that's unfortunate, and I don't think that that's the value that most people are looking for out of a workshop.
Exactly. Remember, you're the customer, and you need to know what your needs are and ask the workshop if they're going to be able to provide it. There's usually multiple people that will teach workshops in a certain area. Find the one that really makes sense for you. Some people want to just do their own thing. They don't want to be sitting taught every step of the way. Others really want that hands-on. You got to know which one's going to be right for you. And I think that's one of the most important questions and takeaways from all of this. And does your skill fit the level of the instructor? So just a few kind of things to think about as you're closing, as we close here today. But one of my favorites is, are there any rules for behavior, right? Because you've taught workshops, I've taught workshops. There's kind of one in every crowd, right? So
there's always a wild one in the bunch. That's all right. It keeps things interesting. But occasionally there's some more serious behavior that needs to be reined in, and
I would say make sure that you communicate with your instructor on what those rules and expectations are.
Mhm.
Like I literally have a list of expectations for behavior, so it's
Mhm.
clear. And if we run into too much of a problem, at least everyone knows what's going to happen
Sure.
if that behavior's there. Because I know of some cases where people's trips were literally ruined over problematic behavior.
Mhm.
So, something to think about and prepare in advance, and also make sure you're a good fit for that workshop.
Sure.
And then again, just things about how long are the days? Are you physically and mentally able to
Mhm.
carry on
Mhm.
in some of these workshops that are a little bit more strenuous, you
Mhm.
know? So, last question, and one that came to me recently is, does your workshop support videography?
Mhm.
So we're now really moving into that video and the GoPros and
All the cameras, all the latest models and stuff have very capable video features to them, and people are using them more and more,
yeah,
aside from a separate video camera.
yeah,
And so some workshops do incorporate some of that instruction uh, and it really will vary depending on who's leading the workshop and what
yeah,
their own experience is and
yeah.
stuff, and whether that's a primary focus or just kind of a side thing that they
Yeah.
can help you with.
Yeah, exactly. So if that's your interest, make sure you specifically ask.
Yep.
They may or may not be able to be equipped or experienced in that area to do it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, there's plenty of other questions and things and tips that I'll have on that downloadable document that you can use.
Mhm.
But Susie, it was really nice talking to you today about workshops. Do you have
Always a pleasure.
any final words or thoughts for anybody?
No, I don't think so. Just
Uh,
get out there. Get out there and go to the workshops, go to the classes, go to the seminars. Take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there to add more tricks and tools and tips to your skill set and have fun.
I agree. That's the most important part.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks so much, Susie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining, and have a wonderful day.